The ominous slate-gray sky over London did not just darken, it fractured violently. The atmosphere above the River Thames twisted and tore open, revealing a swirling, chaotic vortex that heralded the absolute end of days, paving the way for an ancient frozen nightmare to emerge from the abyss of time. Amidst the continuous flashes of eerie green lightning that shattered the cloud layer, the conqueror Skar King appeared arrogantly atop his colossal ice dragon, Shimo. The crack of his bone whip against the air created sonic booms, signaling the command for total destruction. Shimo's maw unhinged, unleashing a breath of absolute death. A white torrent of cryo-energy that didn't just freeze water, it arrested time itself. The raging currents of the River Thames groaned in protest before snapping into solid, jagged sculptures of ice in a millisecond, turning vibrant life into cold, silent statues, locking the city in a prison of eternal ice where hope could not survive. Meanwhile, deep within the subterranean realm of Hollow Earth, King Kong's eyes snapped open with primal alertness. The Ape King sensed the terrifying tremor in the very fabric of space-time, a disturbance felt only by alphas. He rushed to the edge of the precipice, overlooking his kingdom, and beat his chest in a thunderous rhythm that echoed for miles, signaling to all living things that he was ready for a war of survival. At the same moment, in the pitch-black depths of the Pacific Ocean, a bioluminescent pink light began to pulse violently along the monster's rugged spine like a supercharged nuclear reactor. Godzilla awakened, his massive, streamlined body launching toward the surface like a living, organic torpedo. The ocean surface exploded in a catastrophic geyser, sending millions of tons of water into the air as the King of Monsters breached, challenging the sky itself. His atomic breath tore through the cloud layer, a beam of pure destruction sending a declaration of war to the unseen enemy, while the roar of four gods intertwined across dimensions, signaling the start of an earth-shattering conflict. Rewinding the timeline to the barren, scorched lands of Hollow Earth, the tyrant Skar King had plotted a scheme of absolute darkness for millennia. Standing atop a mountain of bones, he commanded his slave army to march toward the distant, forbidding snowy peaks, a forbidden zone. A black wave of destruction swept through the lush, primeval jungle, leaving absolute devastation in its wake. Ancient trees were uprooted, and wildlife was decimated. Nothing could halt his relentless advance, not even the raging currents of wild rivers or the treacherous terrain. He tasted the frozen earth, his eyes lighting up with wicked greed as he found the gateway to the frozen hell, where massive crystal pillars trembled before the resonance of his purple crystal. His servants stepped into the biting darkness, and immediately, two cold blue lights opened up like ghostly lanterns from the void. With just a single, gentle exhalation, the intruders were instantly transmuted into eternal blocks of ice, shattering into snow dust. Yet, the tyrant showed no fear, walking into the cavern with an arrogant grin to face the colossal ice monster, Shimo. He used the crystal to fire a concentrated beam of purple energy that tortured the beast's mind directly, twisting a roar of dominance into a cry of agony. In its thrashing pain, the massive tail swept across the cave, collapsing the ceiling and destroying everything in its path. The apes swarmed like ants, using their sheer numbers to pin the majestic beast's limbs down, while the devil sneaked toward the fatal weak point on its back. A cruel whip to the eye stole its vision and caused momentary blindness, and then the sharp crystal stabbed deep into its flesh. The purple light spread through its veins, sealing the ritual of cruel enslavement. From that day on, the mighty ice dragon, the mother of the Ice Age, became a mere mount for the dictator, and the Dark Army bowed in worship. Welcoming a new era of domination, they marched through the jungle, leaving a path of deadly frost cutting through the lush green, heading straight for the ancient Iwi seal, the final barrier standing between them and the surface world. Shimo gathered frost energy, condensing the air into razor-sharp blades, and fired an ice beam that collided with the golden barrier. The clash between intense heat and absolute cold created terrifying crackling sounds, turning the protective wall into the cloudy white color of death. Skar King swung his whip, delivering a shattering strike that resonated like the death knell of the world. The seal crumbled, and the door to the human world was thrown wide open. They dived into the gravity vortex, intent on swallowing the world whole. Thousands of monsters screaming in the tunnel of light, heading straight toward destruction.
Run! The water is
Back
coming
in
this
London,
way.
the gray sky was torn apart by an anomalous electromagnetic storm, flipping gravity and sending the Thames, cars, and debris flying upward in sheer panic. From the rift, white death crashed down into the city center. Standing in the drained riverbed, the invader surveyed his new kingdom with disdain. A rain of monsters began to fall. Thousands of apes clung to skyscrapers, smashing windows, turning the city into a bloody battleground. Shimo's frost breath swept through, freezing Big Ben and the Tower Bridge in an instant, causing these symbols of modern civilization to crumble and shatter like brittle glass. Sirens wailed hopelessly as humanity realized its insignificance. Squadrons of advanced fighter jets rushed in, launching missiles carrying fragile hope, but it was all meaningless. Shimo merely exhaled, and the bone-chilling cold froze the fuel and fuses midair. Planes fell like autumn leaves, crashing into the ruins of the past, creating weak fireballs amidst the white snow. Skar King walked through the rubble, swatting heavy tanks away like children's toys, sending them flying hundreds of meters. He laughed at human efforts. A single stomp was enough to blow them all away. In despair, humanity could only pray, and as a massive heat signature approached, the life or death question remained. Could Kong arrive before London was erased from the map? London was now submerged in an ice hell, the Dark Army covering the clock tower like a giant anthill. Civilians hunted like prey. Suddenly, blue plasma bolts tore through the wind. Future technology from Monarch joined the fight. Hover tanks glided over the ice, unleashing fire on the monsters. But Shimo turned the square into a deadly ice rink. Every step was a catastrophic earthquake that cracked the streets. Soldiers unleashed their full power, laser beams tearing through the snowy night. But the ice armor was impenetrable. Shimo retaliated with a deadly mist, freezing time and life in a heartbeat, turning brave soldiers into ice statues, forever frozen with fingers on their triggers and war cries on their lips. The tyrant Skar King delighted in the scene, continuing to sow chaos as he headed for Buckingham Palace to claim the highest throne. The golden gates trampled beneath his feet. A deadly silence fell, right before the horizon lit up with the fire of a total counterattack. The sky burned as hundreds of cruise missiles from the air fleet flew like a swarm of locusts, a sea of fire engulfing the two monsters, the intense heat melting the ice and snow into massive clouds of steam. But from the smoke, sharp ice pillars pierced the sky. Shimo stood firm like an impenetrable fortress, shielding the cowardly mastermind. Hover tank squadrons formed up, cannons charging energy to fire blue plasma beams that rained down, forcing the tyrant to dance and dodge. The ice scales began to melt, and Shimo roared in pain as its flesh burned. Rage exploded. It stomped the ground, creating a terrifying frost shockwave that wiped out everything within a kilometer radius, turning modern war machines into frozen scrap metal that rained from the sky. Robot warriors dropped in, rushing into a bloody melee combat, but the enemy's overwhelming numbers quickly tore apart the final efforts. Skar King brutally ripped a robot's head off, flaunting his terrifying power. Shimo launched giant ice spikes from its tail, turning the battlefield into a deadly trap of thorns. The defense line collapsed completely. Humanity stood on the brink of total extinction. Shimo walked like a god of death. Nothing could stop its advance as the last outposts were overrun. Skar King saw the last hope of humanity, the giant command ship in the sky. He ordered Shimo to attack. A blinding blue beam shot straight up, freezing the jet engines instantly, sending the flying fortress crashing down in freefall to crush an entire city block in a horrific explosion. As all signals faded, a door of hope suddenly opened in the sky. The portal activated. Kong burst from the portal like a meteor, bringing fury down upon the enemy. Boom! A punch that shook the earth, marked the king's return. Rising from the dust, Kong beat his chest, his eyes burning with determination to collect a debt of blood. Shimo tried to intervene, but the last suicide soldiers crashed their planes into its eyes, sacrificing themselves to create a moment for the duel between the two kings. The two kings clashed, a duel between raw power and cunning. Kong grabbed a tank carcass as a weapon, blocking Skar King's whip, then delivered a thunderous shoulder charge that sent Skar King flying through 3 skyscrapers. Debris rained down like hail, but joy was short-lived. The ground shook violently, signaling a new danger. Shimo rushed in like a runaway train, ramming Kong across the ice. The enemies regrouped, forming a pincer attack that threatened the Ape King's life. Shimo breathed cold to bind Kong's legs to the street, turning him into a target. Skar King jumped onto Kong's back, tightening the whip around his neck like a toxic parasite, while Shimo delivered a brutal horn ram to the stomach, making Kong roar in agonizing pain. Beaten and battered, Kong tried to reach for the battle axe, his only weapon, but the enemy saw it coming. Shimo gathered absolute zero energy, preparing to erase Kong's existence. In a moment of life or death, Kong raised his right arm to block, and the death beam hit directly. Bone-chilling cold invaded, turning flesh, muscle, and blood into lifeless stone. The arm hung heavy and dead. The tyrant tapped the frozen limb to mock him, and a gentle tail swipe from Shimo was enough to knock Kong down onto the cold snow. Kong lay there, small and alone before the giant shadow of death. Suddenly, the eastern horizon glowed pink, dispelling the night of despair. A familiar roar shook the earth, signaling the arrival of the strongest reinforcement, Godzilla. The Thames exploded, glowing spines tearing through the thick ice. From afar, nuclear energy charged to the limit, and Godzilla fired a focused atomic breath like a laser arrow, cutting across the city. Skar King dodged in panic, leaving his ally to take the hit. The beam pushed Shimo back hundreds of meters, melting the invincible ice armor and creating a molten trench through the heart of London. Godzilla emerged and started a sprint at terrifying speed, the ground shaking with every step. Kong glimpsed his old friend rushing in like a storm of fury. Godzilla launched himself into the air, becoming a giant living bullet, weighing tens of thousands of tons. The mid-air collision between Godzilla and Shimo created a shockwave that blew away all the white snow in the city, shattering every remaining window. The Battle of Berserk Kaiju began. Godzilla used brute strength to knock down the ice dragon, claws tearing through diamond-hard scales. Skar King sneak attacked, trying to strangle Godzilla from behind, as he did with Kong, but he was wrong. A nuclear pulse erupted from Godzilla's back, blasting the ambusher away. Godzilla spun, delivering a magnificent tail whip that broke Shimo's proud crystal horn. The ice dragon went mad, pinning Godzilla down with crushing weight, the frost gun pointing straight at his face at point-blank range. Godzilla retaliated instantly, firing his atomic breath. Two energies collided right at their mouths, creating an energy backlash explosion that leveled everything within a kilometer. Godzilla rose, his body glowing in evolved mode, ready to fight to the last breath. Seeing this, the tyrant decided to use the annihilation move, forcing Shimo to create an ice field to trap the Monster King. Godzilla was frozen from the waist down, slashed by Skar King's bone knife, in agony and buried under the rubble of a skyscraper. Witnessing his ally fall, Kong's pride surged powerfully. From the sky, a technological gift from Monarch dropped. Kong slid his dead, frozen arm into the bright yellow mechanical B.E.A.S.T Glove. Machinery roared, hydraulic systems crushing the ice and restoring the Ape King's power. Kong rushed in, landing a massive punch to save Godzilla just in time. Two kings stood side by side, their dual roar shaking the world as all four titans clashed in a final battle to decide Earth's fate. Godzilla faced Shimo like two mountains colliding, steam rising in thick clouds. Kong accepted pain to find an opening, the power glove punching the tyrant a mile away, smashing through buildings. Skar King realized in horror he was no match for this mechanical power. Underwater, Shimo tried to drown Godzilla in the freezing depths, but Godzilla fired atomic breath through his teeth, forcing the dragon to let go. Kong chased the enemy across rooftops, smashing every obstacle, cornering the devil. Forced to play his final trump card, Skar King commanded Shimo to turn around, aiming the Absolute Zero gun at Kong's exposed back. Godzilla saw the danger. He dived to intercept the shot without hesitation. The absolute beam hit, freezing the Monster King's entire back and spines. Kong turned, fury exploding as he saw his ally sacrifice for him. Skar King thought he had won as he knocked Kong down, but Kong turned the tables, grabbing the whip and pulling the tyrant closer. Godzilla strained to break the ice on his back, rushing to tackle Shimo and pin the dragon down, creating a golden 1v1 opportunity for Kong. Skar King panicked, raising the crystal to hypnotize once more, but Kong saw it. The only target now was that hand. Kong narrowly dodged the poison knife, grabbing the enemy's wrist. A life-or-death struggle ensued, and then Kong's mechanical hand grabbed the hand holding the crystal. Pistons compressed, thousands of tons of pressure crushing everything inside. Clang! The crystal shattered, carrying the tyrant's scream of agony. A psychic shockwave rippled out, breaking the chains of slavery. Shimo woke up, cloudy purple eyes returning to their ancient, gentle blue. Skar King commanded in vain, receiving only a look of cold hatred. He stood alone, realizing his doom had arrived. Shimo breathed a stream of cold, freezing the legs of her enslaver, holding him for judgment. Skar King struggled helplessly. Shimo unleashed millennia of pent-up rage, threw a breath of absolute zero directly into his face. His scream was swallowed as his body turned into an eternal ice statue in an instant. The tyrant was now just a soulless block of ice amidst the ruins. Kong stepped forward, charging full shockwave energy into his iron fist, roared, and landed a full-force punch. Crash! The statue shattered into billions of pieces, glittering like diamond dust in the afternoon sun. Kong beat his chest and roared, the victory roar of a true king. Godzilla fired atomic breath into the sky, clearing the clouds, and Shimo bowed in submission. Godzilla turned away, his duty to maintain balance complete, his spiky silhouette slowly sinking into the deep ocean. Kong patted his new friend, signaling it was time to go home. They soared into the sky toward the closing portal, leaving London to revive under the warm sunlight. The world entered a new era, where humans and titans coexist. A strange but happy family sat together under the brilliant sunset in Hollow Earth, a satisfied smile appearing on the scarred face of the Ape King. 3 majestic silhouettes stood against the sky, symbols of power and protection. Their legend would live on for eternity.